What's up, guys? Welcome back to Book Demystified. If you're in your 20s or 30s, juggling student loans, credit card debt, and wondering how you'll ever afford to buy a house or retire, you're not alone. Suze Orman wrote this book specifically for you, and it's packed with brutally honest advice that cuts through all the traditional financial wisdom that doesn't apply to young people starting out today. This isn't your parents' money book. It's a realistic, no-nonsense guide to building wealth when you're starting from zero, or worse, starting from negative because of debt. Suze Orman is one of America's most recognized personal finance experts. She's a certified financial planner who spent years working on Wall Street before becoming a best-selling author and television host. What makes her perspective unique is that she understands the specific financial challenges facing younger generations. She gets that you're dealing with massive student loan debt, a job market that's nothing like what your parents experienced, skyrocketing housing costs, and the very real pressure to look successful on social media while your bank account tells a different story. She wrote this book because traditional financial advice telling you to save 6 months of expenses and invest 15% of your income sounds laughable when you can barely pay rent. The first major concept Orman tackles is what she calls getting real about your situation. She doesn't sugarcoat anything. If you're broke, you need to admit it and stop pretending otherwise. The biggest obstacle to financial success for young people isn't lack of income, it's the gap between how much money they actually have and how much they're spending to maintain an image. She talks about the Instagram lifestyle trap, where you're spending money on clothes, dining out, concerts, and trips because everyone else seems to be doing it, and you don't want to look like the broke friend. But here's her truth bomb. Your friends are probably just as broke as you are, they're just better at hiding it with credit cards. Orman argues that the first step to financial freedom is being honest with yourself about where you stand. Write down every debt you have, every monthly expense, and your actual income after taxes. Look at that number without flinching. That's your reality, and only when you accept it can you change it. This leads directly into her revolutionary approach to debt, especially student loans. Orman doesn't tell you to pay off all debt immediately like some financial gurus do. Instead, she introduces the concept of good debt versus bad debt and prioritizes what to tackle first. Student loans, while frustrating, are relatively good debt because they typically have lower interest rates and the interest may be tax deductible. Credit card debt is your enemy. She explains that if you're carrying a balance on credit cards charging 15 to 25% interest, that needs to be your absolute priority. Every extra dollar should go toward eliminating that high-interest debt before you even think about investing or saving beyond a small emergency fund. She walks through exactly how to do this, explaining the avalanche method, where you pay minimums on everything but attack the highest interest rate debt with fury. But here's where she differs from other experts. She also acknowledges the psychological wins of the snowball method, paying off smallest balances first for motivation. She says use whichever method keeps you committed because the best debt payoff plan is the one you'll actually stick to. Orman then tackles credit scores with an intensity that makes you realize how critical they are to your financial life. Your credit score isn't just a number. It's the difference between getting approved for an apartment, qualifying for a car loan, or even getting certain jobs. She breaks down exactly what impacts your credit score. Payment history is 35%, amount owed is 30%, length of credit history is 15%, new credit is 10%, and types of credit is 10%. The mistake young people make is either avoiding credit entirely or maxing out cards and missing payments. She provides a clear strategy. Get a credit card, use it for small regular purchases like gas or groceries, and pay the full balance every single month. Never carry a balance if you can avoid it, and never max out your cards even if you pay them off, because high utilization hurts your score. She emphasizes that building good credit in your 20s sets you up for everything that comes later.
The section on saving is where Orman really connects with the struggles of being young and broke. She knows you've heard you need an emergency fund of 6 months' expenses, and she knows that sounds impossible when you're living paycheck to paycheck. So she adjusts the advice. Start with a goal of just 1 month of expenses in savings. That's your first target. Put even $25 or $50 per paycheck into a separate savings account that you never touch except for true emergencies. And no, a sale at your favorite store is not an emergency. She explains the psychological power of automating this, setting up automatic transfers so the money moves before you can spend it. Once you hit that 1-month goal, you build to 3 months, then eventually 6. But you start where you are, not where some book written for people making 6 figures says you should be. She also introduces the concept of the Roth IRA for young people, explaining that even if you can only contribute $50 a month, starting in your 20s means that money has 40 years to grow tax-free, and that small contribution becomes massive wealth by retirement. Orman doesn't shy away from the tough conversations about lifestyle choices either. She talks about living with roommates or even moving back home temporarily to crush debt faster. She discusses the real cost of car ownership, breaking down not just the payment, but insurance, gas, maintenance, and depreciation, often concluding that if you live in a city with public transportation, not owning a car could save you hundreds per month. She addresses the latte factor myth too, saying, yes, small expenses add up, but she's more concerned about the big recurring expenses like rent that's too high for your income or a car payment that's strangling your budget. Fix the big leaks first, then worry about optimizing the small stuff. If you're finding value in these summaries, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss future book breakdowns. One of the most powerful sections deals with career and income. Orman emphasizes that when you're young, your biggest asset isn't your investment portfolio, it's your ability to earn income. Investing in yourself through skills, education, networking, and career moves that increase your earning potential gives you far better returns than any stock market investment. She encourages side hustles and multiple income streams not as a permanent lifestyle, but as a way to accelerate debt payoff and build savings faster. Every extra $100 earned can cut months off your debt repayment timeline. The book also covers insurance, which most young people completely ignore. Orman explains that disability insurance and health insurance aren't optional luxuries, they're essential protections. One serious illness or accident without insurance can create debt that follows you for decades. She walks through how to evaluate health insurance options, why disability insurance matters when your income is your most valuable asset, and when life insurance becomes necessary, typically when you have dependents relying on your income. Orman wraps up with the bigger picture of what financial health actually means. It's not about being rich, it's about having control and options. When you're not drowning in debt and you have savings, you can leave a job that's making you miserable. You can take a risk on a career change. You can help family members who need it. And you can sleep at night without anxiety about money. Financial freedom for young people isn't about retiring at 35. It's about building a foundation that lets you live life on your terms, rather than being controlled by debt and paycheck-to-paycheck survival. This summary gives you the core concepts, but I highly recommend reading the full book to get all the depth, specific strategies, and detailed action steps Orman provides for every financial situation you might face. What was your biggest takeaway from this breakdown? Drop it in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next summary.